I think if you're, a betting person, you would bet for expanded war and for a lot of bloodshed and for further disaster. After all, that's what this region has shown. That's what Netanyahu's plans have amounted to for decades. Nothing more than periodic explosions of mass bloodshed and killing. He's one of the great failures of modern times. But if you're not making a bet, but actually trying to find a solution, then you come to a kind of different conclusion. My conclusion is, first, that Israel can never be safe with the Netanyahu delusional plan. Israel, not even Israel and the United States, is going to defeat Iran, because Iran has Russia as an ally. It's part of the BRICS. It has China as a fellow BRICS member. And Iran, 100 million people or so. Come on. With hypersonic missiles, with the powerful military, are we really going to have World War III over whether Israel is the dominant force in Gaza? I don't think so. So Israel needs to understand Netanyahu is leading Israel into the greatest insecurity of its modern history. Complete diplomatic isolation and the potential of a devastating military defeat, even in days or weeks, because we know that that Iron Dome is not so iron and it's not so impenetrable. And much worse could come sooner rather than later.
Jeffrey Sachs's assessment goes beyond simple speculation, identifying a grave risk in Netanyahu's approach to Israel's security strategy. His message underscores that Netanyahu's long-standing policy of aggression, which has brought Israel into repeated cycles of violence and isolation, has ultimately failed to establish long-term security. Instead, this confrontational approach has only intensified regional hostility, placing Israel on a perilous path toward expanded conflict. The Israeli government's belief in achieving peace through military dominance in the Middle East is fundamentally flawed. Israel has attempted to assert its influence through force, but this approach has not fostered stability. Instead, it has created an environment ripe for further conflict. Sachs emphasizes that the Netanyahu administration's fixation on Gaza and the Palestinian territories has prevented it from acknowledging the larger geopolitical realities at play. Iran, a major regional power with strong military capabilities, has demonstrated resilience against foreign interference. Sachs points out that Iran's alliances with Russia and China through BRICS make it an even stronger adversary, as we all know. As a BRICS member, Iran benefits from economic, political, and possibly military support from two global powers that have significant influence on the world stage. For Israel, the prospect of escalating tensions with Iran could mean facing not just a regional adversary but a coalition of powerful allies. One of the most critical points raised by Sachs is Iran's growing military strength, specifically its development of hypersonic missiles. These missiles are not only fast but also exceptionally difficult to intercept, posing a direct challenge to Israel's air defense systems. The Iron Dome, while effective in certain situations, may not be capable of defending against this level of advanced weaponry. Sachs warns that if tensions escalate to the point of a full-scale war, Israel may face unprecedented attacks that could penetrate even its most fortified defenses. This advanced military technology makes Iran a formidable opponent. Israel's historical reliance on the Iron Dome has provided a sense of security against rocket attacks, but hypersonic missiles would challenge this defensive infrastructure. Iran's strike on October 1st is an evidence that Iron Dome is not all that, and it's not what any country should depend on. Sachs suggests that Israel could find itself vulnerable to an Iranian retaliation that is far more damaging than anything it has previously encountered. If Israel underestimates this threat, it may soon discover that its strategic defenses are insufficient against modern weaponry. Sachs stresses that Netanyahu's policies are not only risking Israel's military security, but are also isolating it diplomatically. Historically, Israel has relied on the support of Western allies, particularly the United States. Netanyahu's aggressive stance and the ongoing human rights concerns surrounding Israel's treatment of Palestinians have drawn criticism from the international community. This isolation has weakened Israel's standing globally, reducing the support it might expect in times of crisis. By pursuing an uncompromising approach to regional dominance, Netanyahu has strained Israel's diplomatic relations with key allies. If Israel continues on this path, it could face a diplomatic crisis where traditional supporters distance themselves from its policies. In an increasingly interconnected world, such isolation could leave Israel vulnerable, without the backing it would need to navigate a regional conflict effectively. This diplomatic breakdown could be particularly dangerous if Israel faces a coalition of adversaries backed by powerful allies like Russia and China. A critical component of Sachs's argument is the potential for this conflict to expand into a much larger war. Netanyahu's ambitions in Gaza and his hostility toward Iran is creating conditions that could spark a broader conflict, possibly drawing in global powers. If Israel were to engage in direct conflict with Iran, the ramifications could extend far beyond the Middle East. Given Iran's alliances, an escalation could risk a confrontation involving major world powers, leading to a possible World War III scenario. Sachs's warning about this escalation highlights the interconnected nature of modern conflicts. The Middle East, with its rich resources and strategic location, has long attracted international attention. However, in the current geopolitical climate, a regional conflict could rapidly become a global crisis. For instance, an Israeli-Iranian war could disrupt global oil supplies, drawing in countries dependent on Middle Eastern oil. Additionally, an escalation might strain the already tense relations between the United States and other superpowers like Russia and China, further increasing the risk of a larger conflict. While Sachs's analysis highlights the dangers of Netanyahu's current approach, he also alludes to an alternative, a path that focuses on diplomatic solutions rather than military dominance. Obviously, a sustainable peace in the region requires Israel to shift its perspective. Rather than striving for absolute control, Israel could pursue a strategy based on coexistence, diplomatic engagement, and recognition of regional power dynamics. Sachs argues that Israel's security will not come from overpowering its neighbors, but from building stable, cooperative relationships. This approach would require a radical shift in Israeli policy, moving away from Netanyahu's emphasis on force and control. Instead, Israel could focus on addressing the underlying issues driving regional instability, such as economic disparities, political grievances, and historical conflicts. By pursuing diplomatic solutions, Israel could potentially forge alliances that reduce hostilities and create a more secure environment for all involved. Jeffrey Sachs's perspective is a stark reminder of the limitations of military power in achieving lasting security. Netanyahu's approach has led to repeated cycles of violence that have only heightened Israel's isolation and vulnerability. He warns that without a fundamental shift in strategy, Israel may soon face a crisis that it is ill-prepared to handle, a crisis that could bring devastating consequences not just for Israel, but for the entire region. In an era where global alliances and advanced weaponry complicate traditional power dynamics, Israel's current path is fraught with risk. By reevaluating its goals and considering the potential for diplomacy, Israel might still find a way to ensure its security without plunging the region into greater conflict. Sachs's analysis points to the need for a bold vision that goes beyond the limits of military power and embraces the possibility of a peaceful, sustainable future. According to Jeffrey Sachs, if you're a betting person, you'd probably bet on expanded war, significant bloodshed, and further disaster. This is the unfortunate pattern in the region, and it's exactly what Netanyahu's policies have led to over the decades. Recurring cycles of mass violence and killing. He's been one of the great failures of modern times in this regard. However, if the goal is to actually find a solution, then a different approach is needed. My view is that Israel can never truly be secure under Netanyahu's delusional plans. Israel, and even the United States, cannot realistically defeat Iran. Iran has Russia as an ally, is part of the BRICS alliance, and has China as a partner. With around 100 million people, hypersonic missiles, and a powerful military, Iran is formidable. Are we really risking World War III just to determine Israel's dominance in Gaza? I don't think so. Israel needs to understand that Netanyahu is leading it into the worst insecurity of its modern history, with increasing diplomatic isolation and the real possibility of a devastating military defeat. The Iron Dome is not as impenetrable as portrayed, and a far worse outcome could be coming sooner rather than later. Thanks for watching.